So in today's video, I'm going to share with you the time I saved some old lady's life in ASDA, okay? And how a few years later, I would nearly die in the same way, okay? And I'm going to explain to you exactly how it felt and how it feels, okay? So in the house I'm in right now, we moved in here in 2018, and when we moved in, I remember I drove to the local ASDA, okay? I hadn't really ever been in that supermarket much before, okay? And I remember I was walking just down the aisles like you do with the trolley, and I walked past this old lady, and she was hunched over her trolley, okay? Kind of like hunched over, like leaning over. And there's absolutely nobody around, okay? It's just me and her on this aisle. And I looked at her, and usually I would just walk past and think nothing of it, okay? Something on this particular day made me go back and just say to her, are you okay? Are you all right? And basically she went, just pointing at her throat. So I said, you're choking? And she nodded her head like yes. I was like, oh my God, like I've actually got someone in front of me who's choking and there's nobody around. So it quickly dawned on me that I am the only person who is going to have to deal with this now. I've done first aid, you go on these first aid courses with work and all that stuff. I'm a personal trainer, so you've got to be first aid for that, and all the workplaces, it's kind of mandatory, okay? And you never think really you're going to have to do this stuff, but saying that, there is an event in my life I've had to use this in the past before. That will be another video, okay? So it quickly dawned on me that I'm going to have to deal with this, and there was nobody there. So I started off with the classic thump. I was starting to hit her back. I was thumping her back, okay? And it's a bit strange. I know she's choking, but I remember thinking, am I hitting her too hard here? Because she was an old lady, and I was very conscious of the level of force that I was hitting her with, which is a bit odd. When someone's choking, it's life or death. Now, while this was happening, we were getting a couple of stragglers at the end of the aisles, just like coming, like they do with the trolleys, and they're starting to watch and they're looking over, and they're getting the gist of someone's choking. I'm saying, they're choking, can you get someone, please? And I'm basically hitting her, and the hits are getting progressively harder, okay, because I'm thinking, well, she's choking, and I'm still mindful that basically I don't want to hurt her, which is odd, okay? So as this is going on, more people are gathering, and it felt like an eternity that there was no help coming. It was progressively getting, this has been, I couldn't tell you how long it had been, okay, because time goes warped in this situation, okay, whether it was a minute, 2 minutes, but it felt like a very long time before I thought a first aider would come, okay. A first aider didn't come, okay. So I'm hitting her back, and some people are going to get staff, first aiders, all that stuff, and it quickly dawns on me that this isn't working. So I ended up going into the Heimlich remover, okay, where you basically go behind them and you thrust them. And in my mind I'm thinking, man, there's no way this is going to work. Like, this is the kind of thing that you see like in movies. Like, I didn't even know, even though I'd done all the training, you don't even really know if you're doing it right. It's a really odd move. Like, you put your arms around the waist and you pull in. I wasn't even sure if I was doing it right, okay? But in a nutshell, I was doing the Heimlich remove runner, and I did, like with the slaps, you don't really know how hard you should be doing it. But then you've also got in your mind, well, if she's choking, she's going to die, basically. So in a nutshell, to cut, well, not a long story short, the Heimlich remover is what eventually freed up her throat and got out what she had. And what she had in her throat was, she was sucking on a piece of chocolate, and it must have got stuck in her throat, okay? So by this time, I think after I'd saved her and she had got this out, I remember people come in, ASDA staff, and they got, I don't know if a first aider come, and eventually, I think first aid staff come, and they got her a chair and they sat her down, and okay, and at this point we were still waiting for like help to come, okay, and by this point she had been saved. I think she was shook up, and she was sat down, and it got to a point where you were waiting a few minutes, 5 minutes, and then nobody was really asking me anything, and it was kind of like, well, what am I really waiting there for now, because I've saved her? Like, sometimes people can hang around for like, you know, some sort of like some sort of, I don't know, some sort of reward. You think they're going to get some sort of reward or praise or something. And I thought, well, I felt like I was just hanging around now. So at this point, I just said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, okay. So I said, all right. And that was it. And basically I left her. And I never heard anything about that ever again, really, apart from the fact that I actually I forgot that ever happened. And time to time I remember that, wait a minute, man, I actually saved somebody's life. Now, at the start of the video, I said, I have actually nearly died, choked to death myself, okay? And I'm going to tell you exactly how it felt, okay? So one day, this was a few years later, so this happened, so I saved her in 2018, and let me just add, I'm pretty confident that she would have died, okay? Because there was nobody around it was like a dead supermarket. I'm pretty convinced that she would have died if I hadn't have gone back and said, are you okay? Because I think by the time anyone else might have noticed, she probably would have been on the floor. And people don't know, once someone's on the floor, what is up with them. The only reason I knew was because I asked her the question, are you choking? And she pointed to her throat. So I am convinced that I did save her life that day, okay? Now, when I was choking, I'm going to tell you what happened. Now, I was basically eating some chicken, okay? And I must have been eating too fast, okay? Now, on this particular day, I had some pretty bad anxiety, and I was already struggling just with nothing in my mouth to swallow anyway. I can't swallow him. So in a nutshell, I was eating this meal, and sometimes when you're eating, you feel like you can get some food stuck, and you'll have a drink and it'll wash down if you're eating too quick or whatever. So I was eating chicken. There might have been too much chicken. The chicken was too big. So this was in 2000. What was it? No, this was the same year. Okay, so this was the same year. So this was a few months later. So we moved in here in May, and this was happened in October. So 5 months later, after saving this lady, I nearly choked to death. Okay. So 5 months later, I'm eating my meal of chicken, and in a nutshell, it gets stuck in my throat. I try to wash it down, and it won't move. And I'm like, okay, this isn't moving. And it's a very surreal moment. Like in the movies, like I see the clip the other day where it was like a viral clip, okay, and it was supposed to be real. It might have been real, and it showed a police officer choking, and he was rolling around on the floor like a madman, like holding his throat. Okay, that is not what happens when you're choking. Just like with this old lady, no, she wasn't rolling around on the floor like a mad woman. She was walking. She had just something thought, and she's probably processing, what the hell do I do here? Okay, I was doing exactly the same thing. Okay, I was like conscious, like, well, okay, it's stuck in my throat, and you think you're processing what's going on, and you're thinking, right, I need to get it out, and you're working through the steps, like, okay, I'm trying to swallow, it's not going down. And then as time progresses, you begin to realise what is actually happening. Now at this point, nobody else was around, so there was nobody to save me, okay? So I went outside, so it got to the point where it wasn't moving, and I thought, right, I'm going to have to knock on a neighbour's door. I'm going to have to go, and that's like a last resort, to knock on someone's door and say you're choking. You're giving a bad way. So I've realised to myself, I thought, right, I have to now, to save myself, I have to get this out of my throat now. So I ended up basically just leaning over, leaning over like this. I tilted my head right forward, and I was literally heaving and hawking and heaving, and I managed, by the grace of God, to get it out, okay? I was on the verge of going to next door, knocking on to say I'm choking. I'm convinced if I didn't manage to hawk it out then, there's a possibility I might not be here. And it was a very surreal experience, and you're very shook up afterwards because you realise what's happened. Basically, my airways was just totally blocked. And it's one of those times where I very well may not be here today with that. So yeah, in a nutshell, if you're ever choking, you really want to what saved me was, you need to lean your body right forward and really get all of the gravity and hawk it. And I was lucky that I managed to get it out, okay? But so in that video, yeah, that's just my first video on the channel. If you like these real one take, unedited videos of just talking about real events, okay, I'm going to start frequently uploading and just talking, okay? You might want to listen to it on your walk, or you know, when you're making your dinner in the kitchen or something. But I personally like these kind of videos. I don't like these over edited stuff. Let's talk about real events, real problems, real issues, and that's just one of my situations in my life where I've saved somebody. I've nearly died myself either the same way, so I can relate, and I'm going to be sharing more stuff like this. So please subscribe, because it's a new channel. It's very difficult to get a new channel going. So if you can subscribe, like and comment. Have you ever saved anybody? Have you ever nearly died of something? Let me know in the comments, okay? I appreciate the time watching this if you got this far. Until next time, take it easy.